I have in my notes here, famously said, the United States is like the Titanic, and I'm here with the lifeboat trying to get people to leave the ship. I see a real financial crisis coming for the United States. So you predicted it once, and you're saying it's going to happen again.
Well, the real crisis that I'm predicting is a currency crisis, not just the one that happened in 2008. The financial crisis was part of my prediction because I saw that coming early on with the housing bubble and the mistakes that the Federal Reserve made back then. But I always believed that the consequences would be a dollar crisis because I knew that when I was forecasting the '08 financial crisis, that the government would make the mistake of trying to bail everybody out and prop everything up, that they would slash interest rates and print all this money. And I knew that that would ultimately cause a crisis in the dollar. I just didn't realize it would take so long because the financial crisis happened 12 years ago and we still haven't had the dollar crisis. But I think that crisis is coming. You know, a lot of people think they're prepared for that crisis by owning Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. But I don't think so. I mean, I think there could be a crisis in the cryptocurrencies long before there's a crisis in national fiat currencies.
Let's call it the currency crisis.
Yes.
What does it look like?
Well, it looks like inflation, right? So, and we already see that now, right? You can see the beginnings of that. There's a lot of inflation that's now obvious. You can see it in consumer prices. You've got the government telling us not to worry about it, right? Because it's all transitory. But if you remember, early on in the financial crisis, they said, don't worry about the subprime mortgage problem because that's contained. And, I was saying at the time that they were wrong, that the Federal Reserve was wrong, that it wasn't contained, that what we saw in subprime was the tip of this huge iceberg. And, I was right about that. Well, the same thing is happening now. I mean, the inflation problem is as transitory as the subprime problem was contained.
But then what does that look like?
It looks bad,
What happens?
Well, as an American, what a lot of people don't seem to realize is our whole standard of living is a function of our ability to take the paper money that the Federal Reserve creates and buy all the stuff that people all around the world produce. Right? So we exchange money we print for the stuff everybody else makes. Well, it's a lot harder to make stuff than just print money. Right. In fact, they don't even have to print it anymore, that they just create it digitally, right? The Fed just conjures it into existence into bank accounts. And then we go on and we buy stuff and we have a service economy, right? Most people in America don't go to a factory and make anything, right? What they do for a living is they provide some type of service, but we buy all kinds of stuff, right? You go into a store and buy stuff. Where's it made? I mean, look around your studio. None of this equipment is made in America. All of it is imported. And maybe it's made in Germany or
I was made in America.
Huh?
I was made in America.
Well, I'm talking about the stuff.
I'm a hefty piece of equipment, my friend.
All right.
This is horrifying. It's horrifying. And I'm asking questions because I want to know the answer. And I know it looks like, is this the apocalypse?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be pretty bad. But at one point, before you were born, even when I was a kid, all the electronic equipment was made in America. I mean, you wouldn't buy something. I mean, if it was made in Japan, it would be junk, right? People used to make fun of stuff
all the time.
that was made in Japan, right? Because it was crap.
Yeah.
We made everything in America. We manufactured all the stuff that we now import, but we don't do that anymore. And that's a lot of that had to do with regulations and taxes that made us less competitive, but also because of the Fed keeping interest rates artificially low. We didn't save, and so we didn't do the capital investment required to build all this stuff. But our whole standard of living is based on our ability to export paper money that we print. And that's because the US dollar is the primary reserve currency. So all these central banks around the world want dollars. Oil is priced in dollars. People buy oil from OPEC. Even if you're in Australia and you're buying oil from Saudi Arabia, you're paying US dollars, right? So people need US dollars for a lot of things, a lot of transactions. You have maybe Brazil is doing a deal with Japan. They're not even using yen. They're not using real. They're using dollars. So the dollars are being used outside the United States. And all that benefits us because we print them. It costs us nothing. And we send them out there and we get
product.
Right. But the problem is we've borrowed all this money. We have a tremendous amount of debt. We can't finance it. So we have to print more and more money. And as we print more money, that decreases the value of the money that's out there. And I think at some point soon, foreigners are not going to want to just hold on to our dollars. What they do with the dollars is they invest them in U.S. treasuries, right? They buy government bonds, but those government bonds pay next to nothing. The yield on a 10-year treasury is 1.6%. On a 30-year treasury, it's about 2%. But inflation is at least 6. But it's probably more like 10 or higher. So you're a guaranteed loser if you hold on to U.S. treasuries, especially if you're looking at them from the prism of one of our creditors who has to look at the value of those treasuries in terms of their own currency. And so as the dollar starts to sink, our creditors are losing a lot holding on to those treasuries. And I don't think they're going to want to do it. So I think that the dollar is going to collapse. And then we're not going to be able to import stuff unless we can export something else to pay for it. Right now, we have a trade deficit every month of about $80 billion. So you're like $1 trillion a year. And if you look at all these ships, you guys, out in California,
Long Beach.
All those ships that are coming to Long Beach and San Pedro and Los Angeles, right? They're loaded up so high with containers, some of them fall off in the ocean on the way over.
And I heard that whole situation isn't as simple as it's being explained either, because from what I understand, trucks are going there every day and they're leaving empty. They're not getting loaded with the containers.
But the other thing that's empty is when the containers go back to Asia, they're empty. We got nothing to put in there.
Yeah, of course.
It's one-way trade.
What are we exporting nowadays that is of matter? Like,
you know what we export raw materials like agricultural products or stuff that we dig out of the ground or we grow. It's like we're a colony. I mean, all the real stuff is done outside the United States. Right. We ship China raw materials and they ship us finished goods, right? The high-end work is done over there. We used to do all that ourselves when we were a powerful industrial country because we had more economic freedom, we had limited government, but now we're just living off the printing press. But when all of this changes, when the dollar crashes, Americans are going to have to live within their means. And what that means is we're only going to be able to consume if we produce.
Oh no, I can't do that. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. I can't do plants
and we can't. We can only borrow, right? If we save, right? Americans right now are borrowing for everything, right? People buy stuff, they have no money, they buy it on a credit card, they have all kinds of gimmicks now to
not even to mention leverage, like and how people invest.
All that, look, I mean, all that's going to go away. I mean, Americans aren't going to be able to borrow to buy cars. You want to buy a car, you need the money. Right? You can't just, finance it over 8 years with nothing down. All that's going to stop.